Hello, I am Odysseus, but most call me Odysseus the Cunning. I'd like to share with you my story. It starts with the happiest moment of my life, the birth of my son, Telemachus. I was the king of Ithaca and married to the beautiful Penelope. Everything seemed to be going well until I was called to war by Menelaus, the king of Sparta. Turns out Paris of Troy had abducted his wife Helen. I know I had vowed to protect the honor of Helen, but I didn't want to go, so pretended to be insane. That didn't work out, and they saw right through it. So here I was setting out to Troy with some other mates of mine like Nestor, Teucer, and Achilles. We spent 10 years fighting. There were the odd death of Achilles' cousin, Patroclus, and the death of Hector. We were getting nowhere until I came up with the most cunning plan of all time. In the middle of the night, we deserted Troy and parked our ships elsewhere, leaving a giant wooden horse as a gift from the gods. We were secretly in it. They wheeled us in, and all of a sudden, we had just gained entry after 10 years. We let the others in and basically destroyed them. And thanks to me, we won. And our king died. We set out for home. Little did I know that this would take another 10 years. Our first stop was the land of Cicones. It was a great place to do some looting and plundering. The locals seemed weak and timid at first, but I knew better. I persisted that the men and I hop back on the ship, but they resisted. They fell asleep on the beach, and lo and behold, the locals attacked. I lost 72 of my men. We raced back to the ocean to be met by fierce storms that threw us off course. When was our luck going to change? Not for a while, unfortunately. We came across another island, home of the Lotus Eaters, it were. I sent my men out to search for food, and yet again my men got themselves into more problems. They had eaten lotus fruit that had caused them to fall asleep and stop caring about ever returning home. I was forced to drag them back against their will. I even had to bind them to the masts so they wouldn't swim back. After sailing for many weeks without further adventure, we came across another island. A handful of men and I went ashore to search the island, and we came across a gigantic cave full of flocks of sheep. We slaughtered a few and feasted on their flesh. Little did we know, the owner of the lair was about to do the same to us. A humongous cyclops named Polyphemus returned to his cave and blocked the entrance with a rock. We were trapped. Every day he made a meal of 2 of my men. Once again I devised a cunning plan. We would give him intoxicating wine, so he would greedily drink it and become drunk and drowsy. He took the bait. Once he had fallen asleep, the men and I thrust a red-hot wooden stake through his eye. We managed to escape by strapping ourselves to the belly of the sheep, as now the Cyclops was blind. Once on our ships, I realized I'd become the sworn enemy of Poseidon. Our luck was beginning to change when we arrived in Aeolia, home of Aeolus, the god of winds. He gave us a bag of winds that would guide us home safely to Ithaca. We set sail once more, knowing I had to protect this bag. However, my exhaustion got the better of me, and once I was asleep, the men's curiosity ruined our chances of returning home. They opened the bag. It caused a storm that drove us right back to Aeolia, where Aeolus refused to help us anymore because he thought I was unlucky. I know I'm unlucky! Especially when we reached the next island, Telephilos. This time I anchored my ship furthest away, which was lucky for me, as my men were ambushed by cannibals. They devoured them and destroyed the ships. It all happened so quickly, and only I and a few men escaped on my ship. Having barely saved our own lives, we landed on an island home to Circe, the Enchantress. She had strong magic and turned my men into pigs after feeding them cheese and wine. Luckily, Hermes gave me a drug called moly, which resisted her magic. It was also lucky that I was incredibly good looking. The Enchantress agreed that if I shared her bed, she would change my men back. We remained on the island for 1 year until I decided it was time to leave. Circe gave me instructions on how to get home. I had to meet the prophet, Tiresias. No alive men entered the underworld, but that's what made me special from most men. We made sacrifices to the god Hades by the shore of Acheron. I took the path alone to the dark underworld, where Tiresias told me that in order to get home, I had to pass between Scylla and Charybdis, 2 great monsters. I knew what we had to do now. We sailed for many days and began to notice strange sounds. It was the approaching siren Circe had warned me about. I ordered my men to plug their ears with beeswax so they would not be captivated and manipulated by the sounds. I also ordered my men to tie me down. Why? Because I wanted to hear the sounds for myself. Luckily, they had tied me down tightly. The sirens eventually faded and my mission came back into focus. I followed the advice of Circe and sailed closer to Scylla, the 6-headed monster, as the whirlpool Charybdis would drown the whole ship. I had to sacrifice 6 of my men in order to make it past the monster. It was hard, but it had to be done. I've kept quiet about it till this day. After that whole stressful ordeal, I ordered to anchor at the island Thrinacia, as I needed a good rest. My men defied me again once we were here. It was quite clear that we weren't supposed to harm any of the cattle on the island. It was a sacred place to the sun god Helios. My men feasted on the cows, and Helios went crying to Zeus. Zeus sank my ship in response with his thunderbolt, killing all my men except me. Well, it was going to happen eventually. After this, everything was a blur, and I found myself swept onto an unknown island. Apparently, this island was called Ogygia, where I spent 7 years. A nymph called Calypso had found me and fallen in love with me. First Circe, now Calypso. She promised me immortality, but eventually I realized what I truly wanted. What I truly wanted was to return home to Ithaca and my family. Hermes came to my rescue once again and persuaded her that she let me go, and that was that. I sailed off on a raft I built. It was not too long until I was hit by another storm and I found myself on another strange island. This was the last leg of my journey before reaching Ithaca. I was welcomed with love and hospitality when I revealed who I was. They told great stories of the Trojan War and the wooden horse I had invented. After I told them of my ordeals, they gave me the fastest ship to return home, and I was truly grateful. I finally reached my home, Ithaca. I met with my old servant and my son, and learnt of all the suitors that had been bothering my wife. Disguised as a beggar, I went unnoticed. I even went unnoticed to my wife. I soon came to learn that Penelope had set up a simple task for the suitors that, if accomplished, would lead to marriage. The task was to string my bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe handles held together. This was something only I could do. One by one, they tried and failed, until it was my turn. In one quick move, my arrow pierced through all axe handles, and I revealed my true identity. Chaos let loose. I massacred all the suitors and pleasure slaves. My wife was still not persuaded it was truly me, and so set another test. She ordered that her bed be removed from the bedchamber, and I would not allow this. I had fashioned it out of living oak with my own hands. I realized that she had just played me, but now she knew it was me, the true Odysseus. And that is the story of I, Odysseus. Thank you for listening to the tales of oneself.